I was just like miserable. It just, every day I'd wake up and be like, oh, what are you doing today? Oh, and then once the terrier decided, right, we're out, there's no way I could, turn back on that decision.
Sean Conway, world record holder and ultra athlete.
They decided to try to break the world record.
I had no cycling background, no sporting background. There was no reason why I should have been on that start line. Trained 40 hours a week for 6 months. I was on the start line to cycle around the world.
What was your thoughts during that time?
So my biggest thought was one of the other competitors beating me. So
can you take us back to the moment when you were hit by a car?
It was early in the morning, about 6 in the morning, pitch dark, raining, so there was water on the road. I was coming up to a traffic light. I was on a road you would never cycle on. And this guy was sort of speeding a bit late for work. It's raining, windscreen wipers, red little dots on the windscreen. My red light, he just didn't see it. I just woke up on the side of the road. And I'm like, whoa. And there was green, blue and red lights around, and there was people over me. And I was like, what? Why am I here? Totally confused. And they said, sorry, you've been in an accident. And I was like, what? And then I remember the first thing I said is, how's the bike? And I remember the nurse going, sorry, the bike's totaled.
If you could go back to yourself and give yourself one piece of advice, what would you say to yourself?
I would say once you've...
What do I need to know about you to understand how you became the person who's sitting in front of me today? If we start with your childhood.
Yeah, I was born in Africa, in Zimbabwe, in the bush, right in the middle of the Sahara, where people would pay to go and see lions and elephants and rhinos. Yeah. I would get annoyed because they'd be drinking all the water out my paddling pool. We genuinely had that. An elephant used to come into our garden and drink all the water out my paddling pool.
Really?
Every night. Yeah, my mum for ages thought it had a hole in it.
Yeah.
So every morning, I'd be like, why is it empty? She'd fill it up and I'd play with it all day. And then in the morning, gone again. And then eventually she woke up early and this elephant was just drinking all the water out of the pool. That upbringing must have had some sort of impact in me wanting to kind of live an unusual life. And I think I have tried to dissect that. There's a part of me that really has an urge and a desire and almost a need to be unique and unusual. Like I want to live a unique and unusual life. Like I like it.
How would you describe your relationship with your parents?
Yeah, awesome. I went to boarding school when I was young, so I sort of left home when I was 7. But my parents are very different. They got divorced when I was quite young. But my sister jokes. She said I got the best of both my parents, and she got the worst of both my parents, which is not true. They're awesome. But my mum's very, very creative, very thinks with her heart, not with her head, very community-based and that sort of thing. And my dad is very practical, very logical. And I've sort of got a little bit of both. I really love the community side of endurance. I've set up the Sean Conway Endurance Club and that sort of thing. But then I'm very quite practical, and I like to just get down and do something and do it well. As I said, I think the positive sides of both their traits sort of rubbed off on me, I guess.
Can you tell us the story of when you decided to move at the age of 20 to London?
When I was a kid, I fell in love with photography quite early on. So when I was probably 10 years old, I loved photography. I didn't really know it would be my job or career until maybe I was about 14 or 15. Even though I was earning money as a photographer from probably when I was 13. Every Saturday, I used to go to all the sports matches with my camera.
Yeah.
And I'd photograph all the kids playing rugby and cricket and hockey. And then I'd get them developed, and then I'd go around the dining hall on the Monday or whenever I had them developed, and try and sell the pictures to the kids. And from early on, I sort of had that entrepreneurial sort of mindset on in the photography side. And then I went to do photography, and then I went to college, studied at college. I got asked to lecture it for a year, and then after that year, I was now 20 years old, thinking, well, I'm going to be this amazing National Geographic photographer. That was the dream, right? I'm going to travel the world, be this amazing National Geographic photographer. Pictures are going to get published in magazines everywhere, and it's going to be awesome. And then I remember sitting at home going, wow, I'm at the bottom of Africa. Like, it's quite hard to travel when you're earning rands. You're at the bottom of Africa. I have an Irish passport. Why don't I come back to the UK? Mum's side's English. London seemed like a good place to be. It's in the middle of the map. If you look at a map of the world, it's right in the middle. Like, traveling all over from London seemed easy. You're earning pounds. So all these reasons kind of made me think, well, let me go to London for a little bit and see if I can further my photography career. And that was it. I sold everything I had. Like, my parents, my dad's a game ranger, living on like game ranger wages and that sort of thing. I sold my car. I got a rubbish old car for my 18th birthday. Sold everything I could just to buy my plane ticket. And I had £100 left over. So I remember I landed on the 11th of February 2002 at Heathrow. I'd already found a job in a salad factory up in Cambridgeshire. So I literally took the bus to Cambridge, then took the tube into London, took a bus to Cambridge, took a taxi to a town called Ely, and then was on this farm cutting up lettuces and carrots and things for salad mixes. £5.20 an hour, whatever it was. And that was sort of me straight into sort of the UK winter, really, which was a shock. I remember seeing the snow for the first time while I was walking behind a tractor with a stick. It was ploughing a field, sowing some seeds, but the wheels would get clogged up with mud. So my job was to walk behind the tractor in the field and unclog the wheels with mud, right? So that I could sow the seeds properly. And it was snowing, and I'm like, it was real like mixture of emotions, because on one side I'm like, I've never seen snow in my life. This is awesome. But the other side is like, this is literally the worst job in the world. Like, freezing cold, walking in a muddy field behind a tractor. Because the guy in the tractor, it's all enclosed. He's got music on. It's heated. So, but it didn't matter. Like, it was all part of the journey. Like, I was totally willing to rough it, and I did for years. I was couch surfing and squatting, and I remember renting for £30 a week the space between the sofa and the wall in a big house share HMO thing. Like, there was 15 of us in like a 4-bedroom house. There was no space left in any of the rooms, so for £30 a week, I had literally the space behind the sofa.
Was it scary to move?
No.
To leave home?
I wasn't scary to move, because I just had this goal and this dream of becoming this amazing world-renowned National Geographic photographer. So this was just like an obvious sort of step for me. Like, just do it. Like, you just go, it's not that far. You catch a flight, it was £500, and now I'm in the UK, and hopefully the opportunities in my head were here.
How did it come about that you became, was it in that business or that job later on that you became a co-partner, or how did that end up happening?
After a couple of years in the lab, a friend of mine who I studied with in South Africa at photography college, he was English, from the Channel Islands, from Jersey. He was moving back to the UK, and he said, look, why don't, if we team up, we can share equipment, we could share office space, we could share studio space, it's half the cost, double the effort, we can go and get some clients. And we thought, oh, that sounds good. So we came up with Carnegie and Conway Photography, and we tried to get like music gigs and portraits and fun stuff like that. But it sort of wasn't enough. We just weren't getting enough gigs. So we stumbled across, by pure accident, a friend of his had a nursery school, so school for kids, a kindergarten. And their photographer had sort of, I don't know, cancelled or whatever. And they phoned him and said, James, our photographer's cancelled. Everyone's coming in for photo day. Can you come and do it? And we were like, well, we're actually free that day. We might as well. So there was 100 kids. We went there in the morning, did them all by lunchtime, against the white background, whatever. Went home, did a bit of Photoshop, printed out some contact sheets with an order form, sent it back to the nursery the next day. Didn't think anything of it. Like, oh, well, it was a day of our time, maybe 2 days max. Whatever. And then, I remember 3 weeks later, the nursery phoned us and said, oh, we've got all the orders. We'll, what's your address? We'll post them. We're like, okay, whatever, post them. And I remember this box came, it was 4 inches thick, and it was heavy. Yeah. I'm like, what is this? And I remember we opened it, and just money and coins fell out of it. So this was back in the day when people paid with actual cash or checks, and checks fell out. And we were like, what? And I remember those 100 kids, we made something like £2,600 photographing 100 kids. And it took us a day, 2 days max to do. And we were like, we don't earn this together in a month at the photo lab. At the photo lab, I was earning about 850 quid a month.
Yeah.
And he also worked in a different photo lab, Kodak Express in Camden. He was also on about 850 quid a month. And so that's all month, 5 days a week. Both of us, we were earning 1,600 quid. We had just pulled in like 2,500, 600, doing 2 days work at a nursery. And we were just like, this is it. It just turned on the right. That's what we're doing now. There was sort of no even debate. We were just like, well, we'll just do that now. It's such easy money. And we just went hard on it. Just went. And then within 2 or 3 years, we had an office, 7 staff, photographing 10,000 kids a year.
Jesus.
You know, turning over nearly like £200,000 a year. Which we just kept reinvesting, to be honest. We actually didn't take much salary because every time we got more, we just got bigger office, more staff, trying to get more contracts with nurseries. And you got to sweet talk them and you got to pay them like you know, you're almost buying into them. You offer the nursery some money so that for the contract, basically. So yeah, we didn't make much more money, but the business was like doing great. And we stopped working at the photo lab and yeah, it was great. Like it was awesome, you know, but unfortunately it wasn't the dream.
Yeah, but how did you go from that? So you're winning at that part.
Yeah.
You're making money. Then you decided to sell your shares.
Yeah. So, as I said, we were turning over all this money, but there was big costs involved with the 7 staff and all the contracts and VAT, because VAT sort of killed us a little bit, which is a bit boring accountancy, but we couldn't charge VAT to the client, but we had to pay VAT to the government. So that was a bit annoying. So there was that bill, but we were still doing all right. Like I still, you know, didn't have a mortgage or anything. You know, so I was still flat sharing in London, but London's expensive. But it was a nice flat in a nice area. You know, a perfectly nice car. Like life was good. I could, you know, go out for nights out with my mates. Like life was comfortable and easy. But I was just like miserable. It just. You know, every day I'd wake up and be like, oh, what are you doing today? Oh, and actually by then I wasn't even photographing. I was just in the office dealing with the admin, you know, dealing with like stuff. I just was like, oh, why am I dealing with this? Like complaints about photos being bent in the post or complaints about the color of the picture. Like we'd turn up the contrast a bit on the pictures to make them look a bit more dynamic. And some people are like, oh, you've made my kid's skin look orange or whatever. And you have to re-Photoshop it. Or, you know, there's snot coming out his nose. Can you Photoshop that out? And, you know, so like life was just dealing with this admin, dealing with photographers turning up late because we had photographers shooting for us by then now. Or photographers doing a bad job, you know, doing all the orders. Yeah, just, it wasn't what I thought I'd be doing, you know. And I was approaching my 30th birthday and I remember thinking, I thought I'd be in like, the Atacama Desert by the time I was 30, photographing some amazing, you know, lizard or a tribe or whatever. Like, I just thought I'd be anywhere but stuck in a North London office, you know, photoshopping snot out of a baby's nose. So, and I was just like, I can't do this. Yeah. There's just this like, so I have 2 characters in me. I have a monkey and a terrier. The monkey's very creative, likes to try lots of different things, likes to break things just to fix them again. And the terrier just likes to chase stuff. And I hadn't really fed the terrier in a long time. Like in the early days of photography, even though I was in the lab, the terrier had things to chase. Like, oh, we're going to chase, you know, this Harry Potter gig. And I got the Harry Potter gig. And there was a couple of outdoor gigs I got. You know, I've photographed some catalogs in India, Morocco, Canada, did some traveling on my own and did photography like to India, Nepal, Tibet. So the terrier was satisfied then. But then from sort of 25 onwards, just there was nothing to chase. Like I knew how to photograph crying babies. I was very good at it. But it wasn't my dream, you know. And then once the terrier decided, right, we're out, then that was it. There's no way I could, you know, turn back on that decision.
Because you sold your shares for, was it
£1? Yeah. To my business partner.
Yeah.
Couple of reasons for that. One, he was my best mate, and I didn't want to take money off him, really. Two, and he's still my best mate. You know, he was still the best man at my wedding. So I think had I gone down some sort of like, I need money for this business, which I was owed and due, we wouldn't be friends anymore, and it wouldn't have been worth it, right? And then secondly, I was sort of doing this metaphorical, it was me having a metaphorical tantrum, going like, right, that's it. I'm not going to do stuff just for money ever again. And this is me, this is the start. I'm selling my business for £1 because you have to do it legally. There has to be an exchange of money. So everyone, if you do it, you always do £1. So he literally had to physically give me money. And he gave me a £1 note. So Jersey and the Channel Islands is the only part of the UK, and Guernsey, where they have £1 notes still. They don't have the coin. So he gave me a £1 note, and that was it. I was like, brilliant. That's my symbolic flag in the ground of not making my life decisions based purely on my financial outcome. Because that's all the nursery photography was.
Did you feel like you, when you started in photography, you went with this vision of, like, I want to do this, I want to travel, I want to see all the animals. Did you feel like when you decided to go in the path instead of photographing like schools with children and stuff like that, did you feel you lost your purpose?
Yeah, I'm not sure I like the word purpose. I think
or your vision.
Yeah, no, I lost sight of really playing the long game. I think I still in the back of my head thought, and even James thought it as well. You know, we both had visions of being other different types of photographers and not school photographers. But we convinced ourselves that, right, well, we'll make enough sort of safety money during the schools, which will free us some time to go and pursue our own photography. So we sort of still had that at the back of our minds. And even when I sold, I think we both sort of thought, well, we'll get this to a point where it can just run itself, and then we can go off and do the other things. But that just doesn't happen. Like, because we had to be in it and motivated, and you know, the photographers, they wouldn't do a good job unless we were really making it fun for them and motivating them and, you know, making them feel part of the team. So I sort of just lost sight of, I got caught up in the short-term wins, I think, rather than taking, because all I would have had to do, I reckon, if I'd spent another 2 years not doing the schools, but really focusing, staying in the lab maybe, not doing the schools, but really focusing on, you know, being the next Jimmy Chin or something. I reckon I had the skill and the ambition to do that. Definitely. It's a massive regret, sort of. I can't really regret it too much because that failure has been fuel for the fire now. And that's probably why I've succeeded in all my adventure world records and my endurance world records, because of that. So I can't really regret it too much. But I do often wonder, had I applied all my ways of doing things now to my photography career, where I would have been. And I do think about that sometimes. I don't want to do it though. I love photography. I just don't want to have to make a living from it.
What was your thought process after? So you sold your share for £1.
Yeah.
What was your thought process like the day after? Like, what am I going to do now?
Yeah, so very logical, actually. Very logical. Wanted to go traveling. So I was like, right, I now have time. Business is out. I want to go traveling. I had enough money to live in London for another maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 months max, with, you know, rent and bills and whatever. So I thought, right, I need to go traveling. I don't really have enough money to go traveling independently. And also that didn't really excite me. The whole idea of just going like, oh, well, I just want to go on holiday. Wasn't a big fan of. I feel like I just wanted to do something difficult, like really difficult that would push me physically and mentally, and also had like some sort of travel element to it. So that's when I just thought of a record that was travel based. And then I thought, if it's a record, I might get a sponsor. So that was my thinking, literally my thinking. It was sort of like, let's try and break a world record, because actually I can't afford to go traveling any other way. And this way I might get a sponsor. So I had no sporting background. I was rubbish at sport at school. I mean, I did sport. I knew how to do sport, but I didn't perform very well. So I thought, well, I bet this is it. This is going to be my new thing. And if I'm rubbish, it doesn't matter. At least I've tried.
They decided to try to break the world record
For
cycling around the world.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, that seemed like the best record, best form of travel that I thought I could probably do. That was likely to get sponsored. I knew I couldn't do a run because running, you need years of experience to do a run record, and I didn't have that. At the time, I thought I could put in the hours to do the cycle record. So that was it, basically. I thought, right, well, I think I could do the cycle record. I think I've got that in me in the time frame. It's also, you could travel the whole world on a bike, pretty cheaply, actually. And it was actually part of a race. Someone had put on the first ever global bike race back in 2012. So I entered the race. So being part of a race, I thought would attract more sponsorship, basically, rather than just me on my own. And it worked, yeah. Got sponsored pretty much within a few months of really, trying so hard. I mean, I was anyone who I thought might be able to, sponsor the record. I was approaching them, and yeah, it all worked out. Got the sponsorship. Trained 40 hours a week for 6 months. And yeah, it would have been, so it was 18th of February 2012. How old was I then? Yeah, so I turned 30 in April 2011. And then, so yeah, this was 9 months later. I was on the start line to cycle around the world.
And right before setting off, you got a souvenir.
My little flying cow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
So the one thing I had done before I cycled around the world is I had actually cycled the length of Britain, but really slowly. It took me 25 days to cycle what I then years later went and swam and ran. So I had a little bit of adventure and cycling experience, but not on a physical level. Like, my performance was terrible. But on that trip, I went to a charity shop and spent £1 on this little cow. And I remember doing... this was early Facebook days, so this would have been end of 2007. I remember I bought 3 toys in the £1 basket. A little hedgehog, a little Tigger from Winnie the Pooh, and this little cow. And I put a poll on Facebook back then. It's like, which one? Like, comment, share, whatever. Like for the tiger, comment for the hedgehog, and share for the cow. And the cow won. So I was like, right, well, this is going to be my mascot. So yeah, I've had the little flying cow, who's been to 55 countries now. Goes everywhere with me. So yeah, took him around the world. It was great.
Were you ever scared?
Cycling around the world? A few times.
I'm thinking before doing it. Were you scared that you might not have been able to actually do it?
It's strange. Like, there was no reason why I should have been on that start line. I had no cycling background, no sporting background, no experience of traveling around the world, never really traveled anywhere outside of Southern Africa and London, other than a few day trips to, Spain and whatever. But I just had this ambition that I was going to do it. So, and I didn't question it. I was very logical about it, actually. I was like, right, how good am I at cycling now? Not very good. Where do I need to be by the 18th of February, which was 9 months later? I needed to be at this level. What do I need to do between now and then to get to that level? And I worked with a trainer, and he said, right, well, this is what you do. If you do this, you will be there. And I was like, great, well, I'll just do it.
Where do you think the drive comes from?
Well, the drive was me wanting to break that world record.
But since you were small,
I don't know, yeah.
You already had that drive when you were little and wanted to move.
I think so. I must have had some sort of drive, because I had these ambitions of being this photographer, National Geographic photographer.
Were your parents? Did
my dad's super driven in conservation. He's one of the world's leading rhino and elephant specialists when it comes to conservation.
Do you think you watched him, like his dedication to that craft?
Possibly, yeah, possibly. I think it's random. I think when you're a kid, you could see something in a magazine, and that would give you a drive, I think. I think we always think that it's these like slow, thoughtful things from our parents and grandparents and the environment around us, but it can be just something random, one-off thing. So, for example, the reason I decided to go do photography I remember the moment I decided to do it as a career. So even through high school, I was really good at photography and I loved it and I was getting the best marks. I hadn't quite committed to the idea that it was going to be a career. Because I didn't realize it could really be a career being at the bottom of Africa. I thought, wow, there's no way I can get enough jobs down here, and all that sort of thing. But I remember this guy came and gave us a talk at school, a photographer, and it was a 1-hour lecture. I don't remember anything. I don't remember his name. Don't remember what he talked about. I literally remember nothing. The only thing I remember is he put this one picture on the screen, which was it looked like it was nighttime with white clouds. So obviously, from an exposure point of view, the sun had come below the clouds, was shining on the white clouds in the background. He had dropped the exposure to focus on the bright white clouds, which made everything around it look dark. The picture was amazing. I was like, whoa, that looks cool. And then all he said was, he's like, oh, and this picture got published in 49 magazines all around the world. That's all it took. I was like, straight then, I turned to my mate Ryan, who's also keen into photography. I said, oh, and we could do this as a job, mate. How about it? He's like, yeah, that's cool. And then literally the next day we found a photography college each. We were going to try and do one together, but he found a different one. And yeah, like I booked onto that photography college for after school. Job done. Just one little thing. So it wasn't this sort of like, my parents guiding me into trying to become a photographer or encouraging me. It was just this one random 30-second slide from a random guy who I don't even remember his name. And that's all it took. So I think it can just be random. I think sometimes it can just be random. It depends on what mood you're in. And I could have not been listening then. So yeah, where did the drive come from? I don't know. I think I've always been curious and I've always wanted, I've always known what I want, or once I decide I want something, I must have it. So there's like an ADHD element to that. If I do, I've never been tested, but if I do have ADHD, I'm quite a high functioning. I'm actually mostly very hyper focused. But then I have this monkey in me as well, which also likes to try different things. But he doesn't overtake my life. If anything, the hyper-focus bit of me kind of gets out of hand sometimes. And that's why I land up doing 105 full-distance triathlons in a row. Yeah, but
if we move forward to the starting line, when you were standing there with your bike, going to start this, how long is it? How many days?
So the record was 127 days, so I'd have to do it in sub 100 days, which was the goal. So 3 months.
So you're going to bike for 3 months, and you're standing there. What was your thoughts during that time?
So my biggest thought was one of the other competitors beating me. So I was confident that I had a chance of winning, but there was a guy called Mike Hall, an amazing cyclist. Unfortunately, he got killed in 2017 in a bike race in Australia, which broke me really. But at the time, it was me versus him, and he was one of the best in the world. And I was like, phew. So that I remember that's all I could think of on that start line is looking at his bike, which was lighter than mine, looking at his kit, which was better than mine, looking at his route, which was quicker than mine, going, oh, damn, maybe it's going to be a tough one, me versus him. So that's all I could think about was I was straight into race competitive mode, I think, at literally from the start line. Yeah. Once the start line was gone and I was in my groove, then I was into, this is it. Now I need to just break this record. And every single decision I make will be based on cycling the most distance that day.
Can you take us back to the moment when you were hit by a car during that challenge?
So that record didn't go to plan because I went down through Spain into Morocco a little bit, flew to South America, I did all of South America from Santiago to Lima, then flew to Miami, and I was sort of working my way across America. So I went from Miami up to like Missouri, and then it was getting a bit cold. So I remember turning left and heading back south. I'd now done 4,000 miles in 20-something days.
Yeah.
You know, it's 180 miles a day-ish, somewhere there. And then one morning, don't remember anything, I just woke up on the side of the road. And I'm like, whoa. And there was green, blue and red lights around, and there was people over me. And I was like, what? Why am I here? Totally confused. And they said, sorry, you've been in an accident. And I was like, what? And then I remember the first thing I said is, how's the bike? And I remember the nurse going, sorry, the bike's totaled. And I was like, no, because Guinness actually have this rule, and it's a weird rule, but they have it anyway. You have to do it on the same bike. If you're going to break the cycle, around the world cycle record, you got to do it on the same bike. And if the bike's broken, that's it. Record's off. I mean, the record was off anyway because I had a fractured spine, whiplash, concussion, torn ligaments, chipped teeth. Like I was, the record was gone anyway. But in my mind, at that moment, I remember going, "No, it's because of the bike."
And what happened? Did you get hit by?
Yeah, just someone. Look, it wasn't their fault. It was early in the morning, about 6 a.m, pitch dark, raining, so there was water on the road. I was coming up to a traffic light. I was on a road you would never cycle on. I was legally allowed to cycle on it, but if you knew the area, you would have done a back road, right? But I'm just looking at a map and going, oh, that one looks like a good one. Like this is before Google Street View and stuff, which is what I use now for route planning to see if there's a hard shoulder or whatever. And this guy was sort of speeding a bit late for work. I think my light on the bike, the red, so you know, he's got a red traffic light ahead of him. So you've got red lights in the sky. You've got red lights reflecting off the wet floor. So there's red lights down there. It's raining, windscreen wipers, red little dots on the windscreen. My red light, he just didn't see it. So it straight into me from behind. Yeah. Doing 50 miles an hour is what he admitted to police.
Jesus.
Yeah. I was probably doing 10 or 15. So, yeah. I just went straight up, hit the windscreen. I mean, even now sitting here, like I can feel my back now. It's sore from that. Because when I got flicked up, the bonnet hit the middle of my back and then my head went onto the windscreen. And that sort of arching of the back has given me the compression fracture in T11. And yeah, but I don't remember anything. I don't really. I'd stayed in a motel that night. I'd had a good sleep. It was actually the first night I'd done under 150 miles because of the weather, because there was a big storm coming in. So I thought, right, I'll do a short day today, have a really good sleep. So I had an amazing sleep. Woke up, apparently, don't remember. Cycled for like an hour or two. I can't remember either.
So you can't remember even before?
No, don't remember anything. I remember, I sort of, but then again, I don't know if I've made these memories up, but I sort of remember cycling out of a car park at the motel. But then I stayed in so many motels, it could have been a memory from a different motel. I don't know. But yeah, I have no memory of cycling that day. I have no memory of the accident. I don't really have a very patchy memory for like a day after the accident as well, even though I was awake. So it comes and goes, and yeah.
What was your thought process when you were laying on the ground?
Yeah.
And they said your bike is totaled and you knew you couldn't?
So I was very naive. I just thought, right, so first thing, I was very, very proactive. So firstly, there was that 24 hours after I got run over where I was in hospital and they'd given me loads of painkillers and drugs and I was a bit drowsy. But once I sort of came out of that, first thing I did is I emailed Guinness straight away. I said, this is my situation. Guinness do have a rule that says you can stop the clock if you reach an impassable barrier, they call it. So that would be like an airport to fly to a different continent or something like that. And I said, firstly, I said, will you allow me to have I've been in this accident. Will you allow me a new bike? And they said, yes. And then I said, will you allow me to stop the clock? Because this is an impassable barrier. And they also said yes. Which actually I now disagree with. And actually they have changed the rules. There's no stop clocking now anyway, which is better. It's a much better rule. And then I was like, brilliant. Well, the record's still on. Like I was so confident. I was like, right, record's still on. And I remember that even the doctor, who was Welsh, actually, the Martin and Missy Carey who looked after me, he was Welsh. He laughed because apparently, on like the second day, I was like, oh yeah, 2 or 3 days, I'll be back on the bike. I'll be fine. Yeah, I'll carry on. He's like, yes, you're not, mate. And I was off for nearly a month. And then carried on. So
Because what were the extent of the injuries?
yeah, I had this T11 compression fracture where the spine has compressed the cartilage in between two vertebrae. So that's now, I can feel it now, that hurts.
How does it work? Is it no cartilage, or did it press through it?
It's squeezed to, there is some there still, apparently.
Yeah.
It might fuse when I'm much older,
Mm.
but whatever. There's nothing I can do about it, so I don't even think about it now, really. And then I had like twisted. I must have seen the car coming at the last moment because it was this ankle, knee, and hip that took it. So I must have, because I had mirrors on my bike. In that last second, I must have turned.
Yeah.
And,
Try to swerve it.
Yeah, I must have. I guess I don't remember. So yeah, a lot of neck pain from the whiplash, a lot of back pain, chipped teeth. So they were like cutting my lip and tongue and stuff. But yeah, I was adamant. I was like, it's fine. I'll just carry on. Yeah, I'll carry on. And then I carried on, and then after like 2 weeks, I was like, yeah, I'm way off on the pace. It was too painful. Power was down, everything. Yeah, so record was off, pretty much.
How did the first 72 hours feel on the bike once you got on?
Once I got back on. Actually, It was quite nice, because there was a guy who heard about the accident, saw me on the news and everything. He was a really good ultra cyclist, and he actually lived not far away. So he came and cycled that first day with me, and then the second day as well. I stayed at his house. Kurt Zierforkel. He actually went on to get the world record for the most number of miles cycled in a year, which was like 75,000 miles. That's crazy, yeah. It's 200 miles a day, every day for a year. It's amazing. So he did that, like 10 years later. So really phenomenal rider. But yeah, so having him with me on those first couple of days was nice. He knew the back roads. He knew all the quiet roads. And even he said when I was back at the accident spot, he's like, wow, man, I would never cycle on this road. And I was like, well, how am I meant to know? And he's like, yeah, it's true. So yeah, and then once he was gone, yeah, I mean, I was still dead set on trying to break the record because Guinness had allowed me to stop the clock. So I was straight back on to record. The record was back on. I hadn't lost any time, which was a stupid rule, actually, because let's say I had broken the record. I could have come in like 2 or 3 weeks after Mike Hall and still broken his record, even though we started at the same time. So it was a stupid rule, and I'm glad they've got rid of it now. So now there's no stop clocking. So if you get to an airport and your flight's delayed, tough, record's off. So, which is a better rule.
How did it work? Because you didn't manage to get in time to break the record, correct?
No, so once, after a week really of cycling, I knew there was no chance I was doing the mileage. I had to do 180 miles a day or something. Yeah, there's no way I could do it with the injuries. So
why did you continue?
I had sponsors who were relying on me to raise money for charity, and I wanted to raise money for charity, so I didn't want to just quit. And also, I remember thinking vividly, like, no one really gets the chance to cycle around the world twice. I mean, a few have. Mark Saunders, Nick Saunders, and Mark Beaumont. They've both done it twice. But I thought, wow, this is my chance. The sponsors were pretty cool. They said, look, I know the record's off. Just let's focus on the charity stuff and you go and keep cycling. And then the other one is I just changed my focus. So it was 2012, London 2012 Olympics. I had this little mini Olympic torch that the kids made me. Some kids made me in a school. And I thought, well, that could be my new thing. Let's just try and get back to London with this little mini Olympic torch in time for the Olympics. And that'll help raise money for charity and whatnot. So yeah, that was then my new sort of goal and focus. And that was enough for me to carry on, really.
How important do you think it is to have something to like pull you? Yeah,
I call them carrots. So when you do a challenge, I think you should have as many carrots in front of you as possible and actively put them in. Whether it's telling all your mates, get that accountability, raising money for charity, get that accountability, trying to break the world record for me, getting that, having cool pub stories for all your mates, finding a partner, whatever you want to put in front of you. So at that moment where you're like, oh, I just don't want to do this anymore, you've got all those carrots going like, oh, well, but if you carry on, you might find a girlfriend. I think it's super important to dangle the carrots.
One last question. if you could go back to yourself while working within like the photography and give yourself one piece of advice with the knowledge you have now. Well, at that time you were miserable, and like they say in the end.
Yeah.
What would you say to yourself?
I would say once you've got as much as you can out of a situation in life, move on to something else. Like, I stayed in that photo lab for 6 years. That was a mistake. I mentioned it earlier, I should have, once I learned how everything in a lab works, which I did after about a year, I should have gone and get another job, but get more skill, be curious, try and upskill yourself the whole time. I should have gone to a studio, and then I should have become an assistant, and then blah, blah, blah. I should have just hopped around learning more skills. The problem is, the lab was fun. It was great. Like, it was low stress, fun. The people in it were, all from all over Europe. One of my best friends was Swedish, Roger Ahl from Malmo, and we, I used to visit him in Sweden, and had another friend from Helsingborg, Annie. So I used to go visit her up in Helsingborg, and so it was great. Like, it was literally so much fun, and that's why I stayed, because I had all my mates there, right? But I think I just got complacent. And I forgot how important it is just to like try new things and learn new skills and that, because I then maybe would have stuck with photography, and don't just settle. Don't take your foot off the gas, because that's what I did in those early photography days. I just was like, it's fine working in the lab and doing a few jobs here and there, but no, I should have just really kind of, once I'd got everything I could have out of something, just move on to the next ladder, find the next thing. And it doesn't always have to be up. You don't always have to be climbing the ladder, but just be curious about other different things. I think that would have helped me a lot.
To give one last summary, if we go through some of your records, what you achieved, that people might not know about from listening to this. Yeah. So you did one of the records which got my attention was the Ironman. You did 105 Ironmans in 105 days.
Yeah, 105 full distance triathlons, which is the same as a full Ironman, yeah. In 105 days. Yeah.
And then you swam the length of Britain.
Swam the length of Britain. So if we look at, there's 4 types of records you can get to get what they call the Endurance Grand Slam. So the Grand Slam of Endurance is made up of a world's first, a world's longest or furthest, a world's fastest, and then the most of. If you can get a record at all 4 of those, you get the Grand Slam, right? And no one else in the world has it. I'm the only guy who has it. And I only got it a couple of years ago when I did the 105, the 105 full distance.
And what was all the challenges? If we go through like the 4, let's say the 4 biggest ones.
So the world's first, I was the first person ever to swim the length of Britain, 900 miles from Cornwall up to the top of Scotland. Then I did the world's longest continuous triathlon, 4,200 miles, I think it was, around the coast of Britain in one continuous go.
Jesus.
I then did the fastest unsupported ride across Europe. It was the fastest overall ride across Europe, and then there was a supported attempt after me. But yeah, I'm still the fastest unsupported across Europe, which is from the edge of Portugal to the Ural Mountains in Russia. So the halfway point was the Ukrainian border. So I had 2,000 miles of Ukraine and Russia, which, yeah, unfortunately now that record, I'll hold that record for maybe forever now, because you can't get in actually now. They won't let you, which is a shame. And then, the world's most number of full irons in a row. So yeah, it took me well over a decade to get the Grand Slam, but I got it. Yeah, that feels weird. When you. And again, it's the importance of having like a really long-term goal. I think most people, I know, most people massively overestimate what they can achieve in like a day or a week, but really underestimate what they can achieve in like 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of having those really long-term, big goals rather than the short-term average goals, So I have the Sean Conway Endurance Club now. And it's easy for me to go like, right, I've got the Endurance Club. I'm going to have X amount of members in 6 months' time, and it's going to be great. Rather, I'm going like, right, well, what does the Sean Conway Endurance Club look like in 10 years' time?
Yeah.
And then I work backwards. And that's exciting. That's a much better place to be than go, oh, how can I get up to, in 6 months I want this. I'd rather go like, well, what do you want in 10 years for this? And I think you make better decisions when you have that long-term goal type thing. And for me, to be fair, it's not, well, it is 10 years, but for this, I'm not thinking anything shorter than 5 years.
And if people want to get more information about you or your records, or where would be the best way to contact you?
Just search my name. SeanConway.com is pretty detailed with everything I've done. Go to my website, I guess. Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time for this.
Anytime. Thanks for coming all this way. Yeah.